Okay, so I suppose I'll just kick off. Luke will be joining us hopefully soon. But as I say, I am an audit associate. I'm in my third year of it, so I've been there since the summer of 2019. And so I just hope to talk to you a bit about what Grant Thornton do, what we offer, and hopefully encourage some of you to apply. So if you go to the next slide. So who is Grant Thornton? Some of you may have heard the name, some of you may not have, but just as a bit of an overview, Grant Thornton is a global professional firm who delivers financial services to a range of clients. The services that we offer include audit, tax, and assurance, to name but a few. And we're in the top 10 accounting firms in the world who have a turnover of approximately $6.6 billion in 2021. So we are quite large. And on the screen, I've just listed quite a few things where we've got advisory, audit and assurance, tax and industries. And they're just a bit of an overview of each of those sections. But our website does list all of those. The next slide is opportunities. So at Grant Thornton, we offer a range of opportunities at a variety of different levels. So you can join as a school leaver like myself with only A levels, and that's absolutely fine. And that would be after college or sixth form. You can also join us at or after university. And this can be through 12-month placements, 6-week paid internships between your second and third year. Once you've graduated, you can join us as a graduate through the graduate role. And one thing to note is that your degree doesn't have to be accounting specific. For example, we have some graduates who have degrees in chemistry and history. So it's absolutely fine to take anything and maybe circle back to accounting. So we may see some of you in a few years, who knows? One thing that I will say though is that being a school leaver allows you to qualify faster than if you went through university. So for example, as a school leaver, you'd do 5 years of training and that's it, you'd be qualified. Whereas if you took the grad role, you take 3 years at university as a minimum, and then a further 3 years to qualify. So it's 5 years against 6. So it's completely up to you which path you take, to be fair. And it is up to personal preference. And on the screen, I've listed quite a few of our school leaver opportunities for our autumn intake this year. So if you're in year 13, definitely check it out, the website, and see what we offer. If you're in year 12, maybe also do look at the website, see what we offer, so you know what to look for next year when it's time for you to apply. We're always looking for great talent. So if you're not eligible for one program, you're probably going to be eligible for another one. So always keep an eye on that website. We do continually update with different job applications, different locations, different industries. So if you did maybe want to apply for London, you can do so, and you can work from the London office. And I will now cover the application process for how you do that. So firstly, you have an online application that would require details of your predicted grades, any previous work experience, your CV, just like a normal job application. Then if you're successful on that, the next stage would be a strengths assessment. It's a scenario-based assessment and will give you a number of responses. All you need to do is select which is the most appropriate response to the situation. Thankfully, it's quite intuitive and very, very easy to follow. If you do well in that, the next stage would then be a digital interview. And this is where you're given a question and you need to record your answer. It's not a face-to-face or real-time interview. So before you actually go into this video interview, you are given like a bank of practice questions that you can go through and mimic the situation that you're going to be in. And it's really, really helpful. It's really, really good. And when you're in the actual real interview, you're given around 3 minutes. Once you've been shown the actual question you're going to answer, and you're able to just maybe jot down some notes in your response and start brainstorming. Once you've done that, you have a case study, which could fall under the same as case study, experience day, and final interview. Those 3 will happen together. So when I applied, it was a day where it was more of like a whole day where you'd go in to the office and you'd do a team building exercise. So you'd be told we're going to build a house, so you'd have to then draw bits of a house, and the point of it is just to see how well you work and communicate within a team. And you have a panel of managers or directors watching you, how you communicate with each other and how you present yourselves. After that, you have a final interview, which is just you and either a manager or a director, just to see where you want to be. It's just like any other interview, to be honest with you, but it is quite good. Luke has now joined, I believe. So hi, Luke.
Hello, I've just got back.
Yeah. And Luke is going to talk you through the college and exam process.
Yeah, sorry, I was stuck in traffic. Yes, the exam process for when you join as a school leaver, you start with AAT level 3, which is somewhat equivalent to A levels, if you've done A level accounting, which is sort of very, very basic level, which just gives you sort of an introduction and all the essentials that you need to know. And a lot of, if you have done A level accounting, sorry if you haven't, a lot of A level accounting is sort of gone over again at level 3, which is it's helpful in a way because it's like a refresher, and a lot of the things you look at in level 3 AAT you can see in your job role, whether you go down the tax audit or advisory route. Following on from level 3, you'll move on to level 4, which is slightly, not sure if the Aaliyah's left there. Level 4, it's like an undergraduate degree or slightly under that, which is a lot more advanced than level 3, and you go through a lot of different topics. So you'll start to cover tax, personal and business, and things like that. And then after you've done level 4, you move on to ACA, which is a level 7 qualification equivalent to a master's degree at uni, which is an ACA is a financial accountant qualification, which is sort of like financial reporting and stuff, but it does also cover management accounting as well. So there are 3 main accounting bodies. So there's the ICAW, CIMA, and then ACCA, which, ignoring the tax ones, which they all cover relatively the same thing, but some just focusing on certain areas. Specifically, ACA and ACCA will cover financial accounting, and CIMA will be more biased towards management accounting. But whichever route you go down, they're pretty similar, and most of the professional services companies like Grant Thornton or PwC and the other financial companies, you'll probably do ACA. That's most likely. I'm not sure if Ali has dropped off the call, so I'll just quickly get the presentation up on my end. So at Grant Thornton, although we're not recruiting for it at the moment, we do a work experience program. So it's usually at the end of year 12, I believe. So if there's any year 12s on, it potentially is something you could apply for. And you spend, I think it's either 1 or 2 weeks at the sort of end of year 12, where you'll join Grant Thornton and just work on an audit team, performing tasks and there's some other events and training that you'll go through, and which can be really nice to know if you actually do want to go into accounting or not. So if that's of interest, keep an eye out on this link here, or if my email address will be at the end, and I can contact our recruitment team and just ask when the next work experience place is likely to come out. So me and I were going to talk about our experience at Grant Thornton and how it's worked for us, and we sort of summarised how we joined and how it's gone sort of from when we started to now. So myself and Aaliyah have been at Grant Thornton for over 3 years now, and we at the very start you do a local orientation. So this is where you meet all the people that you've joined with, all grads and school leavers, and a lot of the team that already work there. So a lot of associates will put on sort of training classes and training rooms, and there's a lot of social interaction, and there's also a meal which you go to, and it's just about getting to know each other, getting to know the job role, and sort of settling in, and that's for the first couple of weeks. And there's also some basic accounting techniques that you're taught at that stage as well, which is really helpful. I don't know if Ali has managed to join back.
Yeah, no, I'm back. I'm so sorry. I think I've had a power cut, but I'm back. So I'll just pick up on the second point, which is continuous internal training. So no matter what level you're at Grant Thornton, you always have training courses to ensure that you're up to date with any changes within the accounting world. At Grant Thornton specifically, we have these days called department days, and it's where everyone in the firm really gets together, and essentially they receive training on any new systems that are being brought in, any new procedures that are being rolled out, and it's quite Grant Thornton specific. But at the end of the day, there's usually a social event, because the day can be quite a lot of information coming at you, which leads on nicely to the next point.
Yeah, so I'll talk about the social events. So although you're not going to live, if you join as a school leaver, you're not going to live a sort of a uni life, and there will be less social events than if you went to uni. However, when social events are organised, we have quite a large social event budget at Grant Thornton, and sort of the whole department's invited. There's usually a free bar tab, and it's not necessarily all drinking either. So there were a lot of events. We went to a bowling event, and pre-COVID we were looking at a trip to Cheltenham as well. So there are some really nice events that go on, and there's typically one every few months, and sometimes even more than that, just depending on how everything's going. And as well, aside from Grant Thornton, when you join with people and you make friendship groups, you can go out outside of work as well. So I've been on a few trips out with the people I join with, and it's a nice environment to work in, and everyone's sort of in the same position, and I personally don't mind not going to uni, because there are a fair amount of social events which are nice. And then Ali, if you want to go on to the uni. Yeah,
of course. So whether you join as a school leaver or a grad, you obviously need to sit exams to qualify. And our training provider, or our chosen provider, is BPP University. Luckily, it's very, very close to the office. It's maybe like a minute's walk from the office. And they have some great tutors to help enhance your learning. They've got great facilities as well. And at the start of your study, they'll send you out materials, they'll send you course notes. And they'll also have like an online platform to continuously build on that knowledge that you've learned for the exams. And this place is called BPP Hub. They have like achievement steps, which are just basically progress tests. And they just ensure that you're up to date, you're practicing that knowledge, you're retaining it, you're able to apply it correctly. And the people there are really, really good, really helpful, and really they're always on hand if you need it. If you need anything, just send a question into the forum, and a tutor will get back to you.
Yeah, and then moving on. So our office, we have a very nice office. At the moment, it's at the Colmore building, in Birmingham on Colmore Row, but that will soon move to 103 Colmore Row, which is the new biggest building in Birmingham. So we've got the whole floor on there quite high up, and there's going to be a lot of collaborative workspaces and a really nice environment to work in with your colleagues. Well, with our colleagues when you join, which is it's a really nice space to work and get away from things. And being in the centre of Birmingham, there's a lot of space to just go and have a drink or a trip out with your friends that you've joined with that at the end of the day.
I'll move to the next point of client exposure. So there's a lot of professional development from being at a client's office like Luke was this evening, and you wouldn't get that sort of professional development anywhere else. The type of clients you work for as well, they can vary. So my portfolio may look quite different to Luke's. So for example, I have a fair few retail clients, but I think he's more construction based, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I have a lot of manufacturing clients with factories, etc.
Yeah, and this is generally randomly assigned, but sometimes you can ask to be on a certain type of client, and they'll do their best to try and accommodate that. And working and being at a client site really provides a new perspective to the type of work that you're doing, as opposed to just sat in an office with the people you work with. You also sat with the people that you're working for, and like I said, it really, really helps you to develop professionally.
Yeah, and then moving on, and maybe this also touched on work at home as well.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of flexibility at Grant Thornton, and like Ali mentioned with client exposure, you've got a PM who's able to sort of request jobs and things for you to be on. Other flexibility parts, so holidays also very flexible. Although you have to book your holiday quite early, it's always very flexible, and you can move holiday as long as you get your request in early enough. We've also recently announced that you can take your bank holidays whenever you'd like. So if you don't celebrate a bank holiday, or you'd prefer to put all of your bank holidays to get a whole week off, then you can do that. And there's a lot of little tiny bits like that which are very flexible at Grant Thornton, which makes it a really nice place to work at. And as well, maybe slightly off topic, but where at larger firms, say PwC or Deloitte, you may be sort of limited in your exposure. You may be put into like a smaller department. So say you join audit, you may be sort of limited to a very specific type of audit. But at Grant Thornton and in the Birmingham office, when you're in audit, you're in commercial audit or public sector audit. So you'll work on a range of commercial clients from retail, manufacturing, and all the other industries, including charities. Whereas potentially in other firms, you may be sort of limited to one type of client. But generally, Grant Thornton is very flexible, and communication is very easy.
Yeah, I'd expand on that point just to say, if you're in audit, once you've qualified, there's an opportunity to then move to another sector for maybe a year or so. So you can have a secondment. So working in audit, you may want to have a secondment into tax or financial services. There's always opportunities, and you always get emails to say, if anyone's interested, we can move you to so and so office or to so and so sector. So again, another demonstration of how flexible Grant Thornton can be. Another, I guess, sort of flexibility is working from home. So given the pandemic we've just been through, working from home was the norm, I guess. And Grant Thornton were very, very helpful in ensuring that we were able to work from home comfortably. We were sent desk chairs, monitors, and a lot. So, and it just really helps a lot with the working from home, which is, I guess, it's more of a hybrid working situation now where we can go into the office some days, work from home some days, and again demonstrates flexibility where we can choose where we want to work.
And I think maybe one other point that we forgot to mention around flexibility and secondments, when you qualify, there's also a lot of there's a lot of opportunities where you could work abroad. So I know there's a few people that I'm working with at the moment that have come from other GT international firms, such as the Philippines, India, and there's someone I think from Australia as well. And it goes the other way as well. So I know a few people who have gone to work in America, and I know someone who I work quite closely with who's going to Australia for a year later this year. So when you qualify at Grant Thornton, there's opportunities you can take where if you wanted to work abroad, we've got locations all around the world where you could visit and work. So I think that covers everything there, unless Ali's got anything else.
No, I completely agree. I think we've done a little overview and summary of GT.
I think now if anyone's got any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll stay around a bit to answer. And as well, it's probably an idea to take down our email addresses. So if you've got any questions through the recruitment process, feel free to drop either of us an email, and hopefully we can answer your question.
That's really helpful. Thank you both very much. Thank you, Aaliyah and Luke. That's been absolutely super. We're obviously delighted that you were able to attend this evening, and we have got some questions that students asked in advance. But please, students, do type in the chat if you have any questions. But in the meantime, I'll go to the list that we've got and see if we can kind of go through some of that. One of the questions was about the accounting qualifications, and actually I think you covered that really quite succinctly. One of the questions that we had asked is it better to do an apprenticeship in accounting or a degree at university? You've both given such a good account of obviously going straight from school. What kind of experiences do you get from students perhaps who've gone to university and then coming in? How does that compare from their experience?
I don't know, do you want, I can go ahead and answer that. So
you start off.
So there's definitely advantages either way. So typically when you join as a school leaver, you end up with more experience than the graduates that join. So when we qualify, we will qualify about a year earlier than the grads. Obviously depending whether they choose to do a placement year, internship, stuff like that at uni, and depending on what course they do. But yeah, typically we finish about a year earlier, and we have greater experience as well. So for the 2 years that we do level 3 at AAT and level 4, we'll be working alongside that. So so we essentially have 2 years of extra experience to the graduates that join. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I was going to say that obviously stands you in very good stead when you are dealing with perhaps some of the clients that you've had that basic experience, so that you've got the sort of commercial awareness that perhaps maybe going to university may not provide. That's really good. Catherine has asked, what does a typical week look like? And actually, I had a question here, what does a typical day look like? So could you tell us a little bit, both of you, about the kind of day-to-day routines that you have?
Yeah, I guess I can start this one off. So I've got to be quite honest, every day and every week is very, very different. I don't think there's ever been a day where I've done the same thing twice. So it depends, first of all, whether you're booked to a client or whether you're at college. So if we go down the client side of things, a typical day might start off with maybe a catch up with the team, maybe see what everyone's doing. Is everyone comfortable with the work they're performing? Does anyone got any issues? Then you'd kind of just work through a list of all the tests that need to be done, procedures. So you may contact the client needing information. You then process that information, select samples, maybe process those samples, send them off. And I'd say you do that part, the contacting the client for information and processing it. Maybe do that a couple of times in a day just to make sure that we cover all the different things that we need to cover. Then obviously you'd have your lunch break, and I'd say maybe it's maybe a similar thing to what the morning was, but the type of information that you're receiving is always different. So maybe in the morning you might do some work on bank statements. In the afternoon you might do some work on maybe stock or what kind of inventory the client's holding. So they're very, very different. And the same goes for the week. Every single day in that week is different. Every single week is different. Luke, do you have anything to add on to that?
Not really, no. I think you explained that very well.
Thank you, that's brilliant. It sounds as though it's a really varied sort of environment to work in, and you obviously have some responsibilities of your own that are set and some that are given to you. So I guess, as you say, each day is different. One of the questions was, what are the best firms to get apprenticeships with? And obviously you're speaking on behalf of Grant Thornton, and we have had some offers of accounting apprenticeships that we put on our Pathways websites, which I'd like to kind of draw the attention for students to the pathway information that we put on MS Teams. But do you have anything to do with other apprenticeship sort of offers? Do you know of any that you've got experience of in other companies?
I can start answering that, and whether Aaliyah's got anything to mention. Obviously I'd promote the Grant Thornton apprenticeship, as I've been through it and I'm doing well and I enjoy it. But casting back to when I started applying, I think it can be quite hard to choose which company you apply for. And I applied to about the first, it may have been the first 30 accounting firms, and I only got an offer back from 2 of them, one of them being Grant Thornton. I think potentially you've got to consider what you would want to do if you were going to choose. So smaller firms, you may get greater exposure. So if you went for a very small local firm, you may get a lot more tutoring from people you work with, but then there'll be less people there and less social events, and you also don't have the name behind. But if you go to a large firm like PwC, they've got that many applicants and employees that maybe you get less personal treatment, and some of their policies will be more strict, for example, around exam failures. Smaller firms typically have a more accepting exam failure policy than the larger ones. But I think you should just try to apply for everything, and then based on the information you get from each company and your experience of their application process, you should make your decision from there.
That's really helpful.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I'll definitely, yeah. Sorry, just to add on to that, I'd definitely say the work experience, if you do have the chance to apply for work experience, getting that exposure from the firm is intense, it's immense as well. The amount of information you get from there to see how they operate, how you'd fit into the firm, they're fantastic. So that the work experience is how I got my apprenticeship, because I realized that that's somewhere where I wanted to be. So if you have the opportunity or the chance to apply for work experiences, regardless of the firm, definitely do it.
Thank you. That's actually one of the things I was going to ask you about next, because the benefits of work experience, obviously, for both of you, I'm sure, have been quite key. Can you just talk a little bit about the kind of skills, transferable skills that you use within your sort of day-to-day and in your accounting, obviously, qualifications as well? But can you just kind of talk a little bit about those skills and personal attributes that you think students need to have to apply for this?
I can go ahead. So definitely communication and teamwork are very important, and also sort of prioritization of tasks and making sure and sort of analyzing what you need to do, analysis, communication, team working. Ali, I'm not sure if you've got any more ideas.
I'd say possibly having confidence in yourself. When you're working professionally by yourself, like your work counts for something, you need to make sure you back yourself to say, okay, I can do this, I can perform this work. Maybe if you're trying something new that you've not done before, you need to say, okay, I can do this. I know I've not done it before, but you need to think, how is this going to help me develop professionally? And I would say that teamwork, what Luke said, is very, very vital. You're working in a team every single day. And if you don't have those teamwork skills, you might struggle a little bit when you're talking as a team to say, okay, who's doing what work, or how's everyone doing? You might struggle. So definitely make sure you work well in a team, but equally being able to work independently is quite important. You're not always talking in a team. You do get moments where it's just you doing your own work. So you need to make sure, can you work effectively by yourself? Because that, I think, is very, very vital.
That's brilliant. And I think one of the things we would encourage students to do is that obviously work experience perhaps in your environment is few and far between and competitive. So have a go at applying for that. But should they not get that, then experience in alternative environments can demonstrate those skills for a strong application. So work experience, I think perhaps you would both agree, is important in any environment to gain those transferable skills.
Yes, certainly.
Definitely, yeah.
That's great, thank you. One of our students has asked, when should we start applying and when will accounting firms be seeking new applicants? I'm not sure if you're able to sort of just tell us a little bit about the cycle of applications at all.
Yes, we have at Grant Thornton, we have mainly we have an autumn intake, which is at the end of August, and a January intake. I believe the autumn 2022 applications are open now, so sort of apply as soon as you can. And then I'm not sure when the January ones are open, but if you were interested in having those extra few months off, and well, I suppose it's not necessarily a gap year, but that period off, you could message me. I could find out when the January intake's likely to open up.
Thank you. What we'll try and do is we'll try and find a link for the application process and send that round with the recording. So I'm sure we can field that through, and anything that you can send to us for the advanced ones would be very helpful. Thank you. That's lovely. I think one of the final questions that I've got is, how significant is the pay gap between someone who goes to university and someone who does an apprenticeship? And that's an interesting question. I guess we all go to work to earn money as well as to grow in our professional capacities. But have you got any idea in an answer to that?
I would say that, and as expected, a school leaver would earn a little bit less than a graduate. But I think you have to think about it in the way that you are there for 5 years. And over the 5 years that you're there and the 3 years that a graduate's there, your pay is probably likely to equal out. And so whilst you're there for 5, you're going to have several increases, whereas they'll only experience maybe 2. So I'd say in that respect, it's quite equal. And as you can imagine, a graduate has a degree as well, and they have to factor that in. So I would say that, yeah, they get a little bit more, but I'd say it's expected, and it's nothing major that you think, oh my God, they're getting way more than us. It's expected. I'm not sure what else to add on that.
I think also typically people who have been to uni, they tend to decide that they prefer to live away from their parents and things. As school leavers, I don't think any of us have moved out yet, have we, Aaliyah? We're still at home. So that sort of makes up for the difference in pay as well. But I don't think the gap's very great.
No.
And I guess the looking forward and moving forward, the expectation is that the progression and therefore pay and other will be commensurate with graduates as you move forward. All of that would be equal with opportunities as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
That's excellent. We have put, I think Faye has put in the chat the link to the Grant Thornton applications, and also quite a lot of other information with some of the websites and important sort of pointers for accounting. And obviously on our pathways, which we encourage students who are interested in accounting, so it's a banking, accounting and finance pathway, we encourage everyone to continually look at the information we provide for up-to-date opportunities. So if we have anything at Grant Thornton and additional companies, we will put that on there. I'm just looking and saying what grades will I have to achieve in order to do accounting. Just going back to thinking about students perhaps in year 12 and year 13, but year 12 at the moment, what kind of grades are they aiming for, do you think, as the best kind of grades to think of for applying post-school?
So I don't think we have any grade requirements. We look at the application as a whole. There'll obviously be more information on our website, but I don't think there's any grade requirement necessary at Grant Thornton. Whether other firms differ, I'm not too sure. I think when I applied, some firms, I think it was, and this was 3 years ago, so this may well have changed, but I believe it was about 300 UCAS points. Mm-hmm. But then I believe a lot of the large firms, they don't request grades at all anymore.
No, that's interesting. I think we have had one that we've kind of posted, which was around about a BBB that they'd suggested. But as you say, I think it's about the whole application. So that's about making sure that the application itself is packed with good information about their abilities and hopefully work experience and their knowledge of the accounting world. So that's great. Thank you very much. We've just posted on there the Grant Thornton Birmingham School Leaver Programme vacancies. So hopefully students can go click on that and go straight to the vacancies and application process. If students, I'm not sure, students are very quiet currently. We have had these pre-questions. Faye's busy typing away with additional information on these. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask? I'm just wondering if anybody has. We just give it a moment before we kind of sign off. It's very, very useful for obviously to have experienced school and college leavers. Luke, I know you obviously are an ex-King Ed student, so students who are online will identify with you. Aaliyah, I'm not sure where you went to school or college.
I went to Sixth Form in Solihull.
Did you?
Yeah.
Right. That's great.
Quite a distance from Stourbridge.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just going back to that. Brad has asked, what things that you can include in your applications to stand out from other applications? That's a really good question. Can you kind of expand on that at all?
Definitely work experience. That really helps if you can get work experience. Even if it's not necessarily at Grant Thornton, any work experience you have, make sure that's in your application, no matter how long or short it is. And definitely do some research online. There's lots of sources that help with online applications and standing out. And I know when I was at King Ed's, I'm not sure the person's name anymore, but the careers person at King Ed's really helped me as well. And Ali, I'm not sure if there's anything else you can.
I'd say if you mention anything on your application, make sure it has a purpose why you're mentioning it. Where you've mentioned maybe work experience, pull out the skills that you've developed there and say how you can apply them in an accounting role. So maybe be quite specific, but quite to the point, I'd say.
That's really helpful, actually, because, as you say, I think not just listing the experience, but actually reflecting on that and drawing out what that gives you as an individual, where you can add value and where your interests lie and how that kind of marries up with that. That's really very key. James has asked, how long do you spend at the BPP University each week or month?
Yeah, it really varies between exams. I believe at AAT it was around probably about 3 to 7 days for each exam, and that increases significantly when you hit ACA, and you'll probably spend maybe 4 weeks at BPP. Sometimes, depending on the difficulty of the exam, sometimes that will be in person, in centre, or sometimes it will be a self-study. So some of the exams are quite basic, which you self-study, and a lot of the exams you'll be in person with a tutor.
Brilliant, that's great. Aubrey has asked, do you think it'll be harder for me to get an apprenticeship if I move abroad after college? That's an interesting one.
If you mean working for Grant Thornton from abroad, I'm not sure whether that's possible. I'm not sure how to answer.
No, I'm not quite sure whether that's somebody who's moving abroad for a while and then coming back, or whether Aubrey is intending to try and apply, obviously, abroad for an accounting role. Perhaps, Aubrey, if you can clarify that, we can ask that question again. That would be helpful. Brad has asked, do you have any advice for things like the digital and final interview in the application process?
I'd say don't panic. I know it's the word interview and I know it's daunting, but it's very much just a conversation about your life, what you're doing. So for my final interview, it genuinely didn't feel like an interview. It was just a conversation with a manager at Grant Thornton. When I was just asked, you know, what are my interests, what are my hobbies, maybe what subjects I've taken. Do go in with some, I guess, ammunition to say, my key skills are X, Y, Z. But it's not an interview like you'd imagine. And similarly for the digital interview, make sure you can bullet point. So in the time you're given to think about your response, definitely take some notes down that you can talk about in your response.
And definitely just do a lot of practice. And all through the process, you have to remember that although this is the first job that you may have ever applied for, the recruiter understands that they're recruiting a school leaver and not a grad. So just don't panic, and just you need to just put the best version of yourself forward, really, and just really be yourself, and just communicate well.
That's really helpful, and actually, as careers advisors, myself and Faye are very happy to talk to any students about interview techniques and some tips and tricks to kind of presenting yourself in the best light. And that includes both obviously online with, as you say, online interviews as well as in person, which we've all had to get used to a little bit more. But certainly those kind of things, there are lots of ways in which you can present yourself quite comfortably and in a relaxed environment, but making the most of yourself and your attributes. So we're very happy here, as you obviously, Luke, experienced previously, to give help. I can see from Aubrey's comments that she's asking about apprenticeships abroad. One of the things I would say is, Aubrey, perhaps we could speak to you separately about that, because somewhere like America doesn't run the same sort of apprenticeship schemes in the same way that we do here. And apprenticeships in Europe and certainly in the US, they're not the same sort of structure and application process. So perhaps we can talk about that, separately, and send around any information that might be useful to all students on that. Faye's busy typing in that's lovely. There you go. Does anybody have any further questions? I think we've exhausted the ones that we had. We've obviously learned an awful lot about Grant Thornton and the programme for school and college leavers, which has been really useful, and making some comparisons with university studies. We're obviously able to help students with both sets of plans. And Catherine Miskin, who is still on with us, obviously in her teaching capacity with accounts, is also here to talk to students in her classes about moving forward professionally. Thank you very much indeed to both you, Luke and Aaliyah, for joining us this evening, and to students in this one of our speaker series. We're holding a series of these in different subjects, but this has been absolutely splendid. Thank you very much indeed, both. We will follow this up. Thank you for your email addresses with some information, and we'll send the recording around. and hopefully we'll be back in touch if we've got any further questions, and we'll see you both again.